I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the common network devices that you have used throughout your careers and experience with networks. The computer is by far the most common device. We've all used a computer. We've already established that. The computer is typically used for creating and receiving data, not for transferring it. It's not an intermediary point. Computers are subject to maintenance performance issues over time. The server is a beefy, powerful computer which is used to provide virtually all services on the internet. Can anyone name an example of a server they've just recently, probably today, used?
Windows 2003 server is used for email, application services, file transfer, printing services as a network.
That's great. Anne pointed out several different services which are provided on the internet by servers, and she also named the operating system that typically runs on these servers, which is Windows Server 2003. Thank you, Anne. Mac, did you want to name a server?
Well, I mean, we do a Google search, it goes to a Google server, right?
And what kind of server is that?
Linux, I believe.
No, I mean server. The server. It's a web server.
It's a web server.
Yes. Mac said Google runs on web servers, and we use those today. That's a perfect example. Routers are one of the most misunderstood devices in the network world. Routers are crucial to the internet. They form the backbone of the internet by connecting various internet service providers. In order to have a network with internet access, you need to have at least one router. Most of us have one because we all have internet access. Routers can sometimes have firewalls and other security features on them. A switch is another device which you may or may not be aware of. This is an enterprise level switch. It's got about 24 ports, and the bottom one has 48 ports. That's a standard number for an enterprise switch. Switches are used to expand the communication abilities of routers, allowing one single router interface to serve up to 48 computers, for example, or more. Switches can be plug and play. If you need to expand your desktop ability, you can go out to Fry's and buy a little desktop switch that has Auto MDIX, which is automatic media-dependent independent crossover. Basically, it means that it will detect the kind of cable you need, and it will automatically use the correct format. It'll work. It's plug and play. That would be a desktop switch that you would buy at Fry's. Internet connection devices are people's personal favorite. How many of you use cable modem at home? Anyone? Mac? Ellie? Great. How many of you use DSL modems or digital subscriber line modems? No? Thank you, Dean. These are the two most common broadband internet connection mechanisms which we use. Broadband means high bandwidth, essentially. It's as compared to a traditional modem that we used to use, which were very slow. I'd like to talk a little bit about Ethernet. If everyone could please pick up the cable in front of you. This is an Ethernet cable. We typically call this a network cable, but it's technically an Ethernet cable. It consists of 8 color-coded wires, which run down the middle, and 2 RJ45 connectors at the end. Each connector plugs into an RJ45 jack. Anne, have you ever used one of these before?
I've actually put one together on my own, but it's easy to crimp them wrong and they won't work right.
That's a good point. It is very easy if you do this. If you make these cables yourself, it's very easy to do them incorrectly. Mm-hmm. The best policy is to use a cable tester immediately after you use it. Anne, does it matter which end you plug into which device?
No, because your color-coded pins should match. They should be exactly the same on both ends.
That's correct. Anne says that it does not matter which end you put in which device. It'll function either way. This is a Cat5e cable. It's rated, they're supposed to be up to 1,000 gigabits per second, gigabit Ethernet it's called. These are typically used for 100 megabits per second because that's the standard for desktop computers and wireless, and laptop wired connections. Serial cables are found in enterprise networks, not at home usually. They provide a point-to-point service which has no addressing built into it. So it's direct communication. A quick summary of the network devices and cables that we've talked about. The devices required to facilitate communication across the network include computers, servers, routers, switches, internet connection devices such as DSL modems and cable modems, and cables such as Ethernet.